Hello and welcome. Today I am pleased to be joined by Joseph Landis from Nerdio, who's going to talk about their Microsoft Azure IT management platform. So Joseph, why don't you go ahead and take it away? Let us know what you got here.
Well, thank you, and really a big thank you for having me. It's great to be here, and it's always a pleasure to be able to speak to MSPs about what we're doing at Nerdio. So let me take you through a little bit about our story, what we have, and show you a demo, which hopefully will be a good combination. So our mission our mission at Nerdio is to empower MSPs to build cloud practices in Azure. And I know that seems simple, but for most of you who have worked in Azure and who've been part of Azure before, you know it's not quite as straightforward as that mission seems. But we really are all about tuning all of you and getting all of you excited to enter the world of public cloud with Microsoft Azure. As we go and speak to MSPs around the country about the challenges that they're having in moving their customers' IT to Azure, we really hear three things. The first is that Azure is expensive, and it's really expensive, I would say, from two perspectives. The first is that taking an unoptimized environment that's running on-premise and just dropping it into Azure is certainly more expensive to run in the public cloud with Azure than it is on-premise. The second,
go ahead. A lot of people do that. A lot of people, think, hey, I'm just going to, move to the cloud. So they just take their existing workloads, move them to Azure and think that they're done. When it's,
that's right. That's right. And then I think what ends up happening is that MSPs find that they're essentially priced out of winning a deal. And really, I think the learning is that there does need to be optimization. There does need to be a certain amount of work on the MSP to tune the Azure environment in a way, quite frankly, to make it competitive. It's also, though, expensive from the standpoint of if you're an MSP and you have not done anything in Azure, like you really have not invested in your practice in Azure, then you have to actually go find people who know something about Azure. And possibly in the town that you're in and the area that you're in, you may not have someone readily available. There may not be an Azure engineer that you can easily onboard. It might take time for you to retrain your existing technical staff to be able to learn Azure. So that in and of itself is also an expense to your MSP practice.
Okay.
The second learning that we've had at Nerdio in terms of challenges that MSPs are facing moving to Azure is certainly that Azure is complex. Azure is more than 1,000 different services. It was designed for DevOps more than IT management. And if you have not done anything in Azure, if you've not used Azure or tried to put a customer into Azure, I think you quickly will find that it is complex, it is complicated, and it does require a certain amount of educating yourself and getting knowledgeable on the product. The third challenge that we hear a lot is that moving to Azure certainly injects a certain amount of risk into the MSP. And what do I mean by that? Typically, an MSP is used to providing a fixed price quote to their customers for services rendered. And when you move to a consumption model and you move to using Microsoft Azure, you typically would want to provide a per user per month type of pricing. And using the existing tools that are out there for Microsoft, it's hard to be able to derive a smart per user per month price that you could feel good about, that you could add your margin on top of, provide a quote to your customer, and feel like you're not going to be upside down the road. And that really we find is a challenge for MSPs.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same with a lot of cloud services, like you said, because with the consumption model, whether it's storage or compute, you can't just, it's not just buying a server and saying, okay, this server has a 5-year lifespan and pricing it out and adding your margin. Now you've got to look at consumption, whether it's storage or compute and all these other different types of things. So it does add some risk in there in profitability.
It certainly does. So we at Nerdio, we go after these challenges with our Nerdio for Azure product. And we did investments in 4 primary areas that I'll talk to you about, and then I'll show you in the product, if that's okay. So the first is with our provisioning solution. So with Nerdio for Azure, you and MSP can stand up an entire IT environment in Azure in under 2 hours and without an engineer. So you could simply connect to an Azure subscription, connect to an Office 365 subscription, click run, go to lunch, come back, and you'll have the whole IT environment stood up. Everything from your ADFS to your domain controller, your file server, your application and database servers, your Office 365 environment, RDS and VDI desktops, everything you need to stand up a complete IT environment. We've completely automated and scripted to not just be able to do it faster for you, but to do it in a more accurate way than if you tried to do it yourself. And speaking with MSPs around the country who've worked with us and who've deployed Nerdio for Azure, we tend to find that without Nerdio for Azure, it would have taken them in some cases more than a week to accomplish the same amount of work. But with Nerdio for Azure, they could do it in less than 2 hours.
Yeah, and it sounds like it takes some of that skill, that training required and things like that in order to even know how to provision SQL and Azure and all these other connections. It takes all that guesswork and training out of it. Is that correct?
It really does. It takes the guesswork away, and it really helps you by essentially providing, even if you will, some training wheels to your experience and starting to deploy more customers into Azure.
Okay, great.
So the second area of investment is around packaging and pricing Azure. Again, a common difficulty for MSP. So we've created something called our cost estimator, the Nerdio cost estimator, that allows the MSP to go in, provide a certain set of inputs, and then derive a price for procuring Azure and Office 365 and other components of the IT stack from their distributor or from Microsoft directly, and in a price, providing a price that they feel confident about and that they could then go to their customers, add their margin to, and feel like this is a price that's not going to turn them upside down after deploying the product. So really a huge advancement relative, again, to what MSPs are using today. This is a tool that was created specifically for MSPs to help them with this issue of pricing Azure accurately.
Okay, now I know in terms of how subscriptions work, is it the MSP that owns the subscription then, or is it the customer that owns it?
It's the MSP. So we decided not to disintermediate between the MSP and their distributor. So all we do is we connect to an existing Azure or Office 365 subscription that the MSP has already procured from their partner. So the customer relationship is owned by the MSP. The subscriptions themselves are owned by the MSP, and we simply connect into that and make life easier for the MSP.
Got it.
So great. The third area that we've invested in is in management, because we know once you have deployed the IT environment in Azure, that's only the beginning of your work. So we have a single pane of glass management console called the Nerdio Admin Portal that allows the MSP to manage all of their customers, all of their resources, users, servers, really whatever it is they need to do with Azure from, again, one single pane of glass, and can accomplish the majority of the tasks that you need to accomplish on behalf of your customer in 3 clicks or less, vastly simplifying the experience of managing Azure for the MSP.
Now, and you said multiple customers, so it's multi-tenant, so you can have 15, 20 customers all loaded in the same dashboard and manage them obviously separately, but you don't have to log into each different one in order to do that, right?
Absolutely. So, and I'll show you that in the demonstration. You can have as many customers as you have Azure tenants.
Cool.
And then the fourth area of investment for Nerdio is in optimization. So we've created proprietary auto-scaling technology that allows the MSP to scale down or scale up the Azure environment as needed. We know that sometimes certain virtual machines don't need to be running 24 hours a day. Users don't necessarily need their desktops running at certain times, and we want to make sure that we're creating tools that allow the MSP to save their customers money and increase their margins as well. So if you think about it, where is our place really in the ecosystem? If you look at the customer environment, that's that green circle in the middle. So a typical customer would have desktop, servers, Office 365, backup and DR, security. The MSP is the white circle going around the customer, right? Providing strategy, consulting, monitoring, migration, and other pieces of value to the customer. Where we play is in that middle management layer. We're the connection between the MSP and the end customer, helping them build a robust Azure practice with things like pricing and packaging, provisioning, management, optimization, and also offering the MSPs the ability to have a conversation with their customers about their security posture in their IT environment. So we have white labeled our product. The customer does not see Nerdio for Azure. We're all about ensuring the success of the MSP, who can add their logo to the product and their unique information. So we are super excited about Nerdio for Azure. We feel like we've got a great solution at the right time in the market, and our partners who are using Nerdio for Azure today are really seeing great benefit in building and creating thriving Azure practices. So with that, I thought, what better way to show what we do than to actually show the product itself. Great. I hope you could see the Nerdio admin portal that's on the screen right now.
Yep, I see it.
Great. So excellent. So this is Nerdio for Azure. This is the Nerdio admin portal, that single pane of glass management console that I spoke about before. And here you could see 3 fictitious customers that you, the MSP, are managing: Adar, Morehart, and Nerdio University. As I mentioned before, if you wanted to add a new customer in to Azure, you would simply click on this button, Add NFA Account. You would connect to an existing Azure subscription, connect to an existing Office 365 subscription, type in the company name, click Save, go to lunch or dinner as it were, come back, and in 2 hours, you'll have the complete IT environment in Azure stood up. Now, once that environment is stood up, then you see the customers that we have here today. And let's take a look at Morehart, again, a fictitious customer that you've stood up in Azure. So we could click the login button here, and we'll log into the Morehart Azure environment. So first you could see the MSP is presented with a dashboard where you could at a glance see sort of what's going on with the customer. You could see the customer has 5 users, 10 groups, shared mailboxes, servers, domains, a VPN tunnel. You could see the customer is running in the South Central US in Azure. You could even see how many desktop users the customer has had over the past 30 days, the desktop login pattern, and in fact, the Nerdio admin portal activity. But we know that MSPs have to do a lot more than just monitor over a dashboard. They actually have to do work for customers and on behalf of customers. So on the left-hand side, you can see all the various tasks that you could accomplish as an MSP with your customers. So for example, let's take a look at the users view. So here you can see these are the users at Mark, Andy, Angie, and Chad. Let's take a look at Angie. She's an RDS user running a B2 2-core virtual machine on her. You could see what Active Directory groups she belongs to. If Angie leaves the organization, you could delete her as a user very easily. You actually can archive her files and folders. We could send them over to another employee, maybe Carl, to file away for later use. You could reset her password, reset her RDS session. You could even take a look at her performance against various common actions like launching the desktop, logging into the desktop, launching and opening a Word document. So you can see how her desktop is performing. Now, what if a new user comes to Moreheart and you need to add a new user? So you would click on the button that says Add New User, and let's assume that Joseph Landis is coming to Moreheart. So I would type in information. You could see that we've included a space for Joseph's mobile phone number, so you could employ two-factor authentication right from the beginning. You could assign Joseph an Office 365 Enterprise E3 license. You could decide if Joseph will have an RDS desktop and be part of an RDS collection, or perhaps Joseph needs a more dedicated VDI desktop. And if you choose that, you could select his desktop size, the disk size, maybe he needs premium storage, and you can even place his desktop into what's called an on-ramp region. So let's say Joseph is in Chicago, but his company is in somewhere else, maybe New York. You could place his actual desktop closer to where he is, in a data center that's closer to where he is, to ensure the performance of his desktop remains robust. You could then send Joseph a welcome email welcoming him to Moreheart and giving him a link to his new environment that he can log out to. So from a user's standpoint, all the common tasks that an MSP would typically perform on behalf of their customer, we've collected into one easy tab that we call the Users tab.
Okay, so quick question.
Now, sure, go ahead.
So when you initially connect to the Azure subscription and the Office 365, will it import the users from that connection?
Yes. So when we support both a greenfield way of doing it or a lift and shift. So if you have existing users in there, it will lift the users over to the new environment.
Okay, great.
Now, similarly, on the server side, there's always a lot of work that MSPs want to do, both to manage and maintain the servers. So again, we talked about earlier the ability to stand up a complete IT environment in 2 hours. So here you can see these are the servers that were deployed as part of that provisioning process. So you can see the domain controller, the file server, the ADFS proxy, ADS gateway, they're all here. Now let's say you, the MSP, need to change the virtual machine size of the file server. It's as easy as clicking on the VM. You could see we've listed all the different series available to the MSP as part of your subscription. You could change the VM series within the same series. Maybe you want a 2-core instead of a 1-core virtual machine, or you could even change series and move to, let's say, an N series, which are GPU-enabled virtual machines. Select the one you want, click confirm, and it will automatically provision the new virtual machine. Similarly, with storage, maybe you decide the customer does not need 256 gigs of premium storage. Maybe they could get by with standard storage. You could change that as well on the fly. In addition, as we talked about earlier, we've implemented auto scaling at the server level. So if, for example, you know that the customer does not need a specific server 7 days a week, you could take the server and say, gosh, instead of Monday to Sunday, let's make it Monday to Friday from perhaps 9 a.m. to, I don't know, 5 p.m. And the server will then scale down after that time and scale back up as needed to save your customer and you costs on this subscription. Similarly, we've done that at the desktop level as well with users. So you, the MSP, can place users into specific auto-scale user
I think we're losing your audio.
profiles. We've created 3 of them for you. Hello?
Joseph, you still there? Your audio cut out there for a little bit.
I'm still here.
I'm not sure if it's on my side.
I'm still here.
Okay.
I don't know. So anyhow, what I was saying is that similar to the server auto-scaling, you could do the same on the desktop side. So you could place users into specific auto-scale user profiles. Here we've created some for you, workaholic, productivity, and work-life balance, so that if the user is not going to be working at a specific time, their desktop environment can also be scaled down to save the customer money.
Okay.
I want to show you.
Just real quick though, I have a question on the auto.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm not an Azure expert. So if I'm not using Nerdio, how easy is it to do this type of auto scaling within Azure? Do I have to? You have to do a whole bunch of stuff? Is it something that's difficult? You know, again, I'm not an Azure expert, so I don't know.
Right. I think the answer to your question is I think the question could even be a broader one. What if you didn't have Nerdio for Azure at all? And what would you have to do? So typically, what you would do is you would use what's called the Azure portal for Microsoft, or you'd have to create scripts yourself to do things. And that would require a lot more work, a lot more learning, and a lot more steps. We've really, with Nerdio for Azure, tried to minimize the number of steps needed for the MSP to accomplish these tasks, and therefore ensure as much accuracy as possible. So it can be done. It's just a more cumbersome process, let's say. One other thing I wanted to show you here within the case of Morehart is something that we call Secure Score. So you may have heard called Office 365 Secure Score. And I think maybe I'm having some internet problems here because our Secure Score does not seem to be launching here. Let me try that one more time. Well, I think we are having some intermittent issues. But let me describe to you what you would have seen had we launched the Secure Score. And the idea is that we know that MSPs want to be able to have a robust with their customers about security. Here we are. So I just got it to launch by refreshing. So what we've done is we've set out a set of rules here that the MSP can use that we believe, if these rules are all implemented, create the best security posture possible for the customer. And we've assigned a score to each of these rules. So for example, in the first one, two-factor authentication being enabled, here in Morehart's case, they have it enabled, so they get a 5 out of 5. But the mobile phone number is not present for any users. So enabling two-factor authentication realistically is going to be hard. So they get a 0 out of 20. Now, if they were to insert the mobile numbers for their users, they would get a much higher score and therefore a much better security posture. And you can see we've done this with a number of different rules across desktop, server, Office 365 network, and data. So again, we hear a lot from MSPs that having that security conversation with their customers is important to them, and we wanted to enable them to be able to do that. I'm going to exit out of Morehart for a second, and I'd like to launch one more feature of Nerdio for Azure that I spoke about earlier and walk you through how it works, and that is the cost estimator. So the cost estimator, again, is designed to allow the MSP to accurately determine what it would cost to provide Azure Office 365 RDS to their customers. So you can see here that we've created 4 of the more common use cases that customers would deploy into Azure. All the way on the right, you can see what we call IT as a service, which is all about running a complete virtual desktop centric environment in the cloud. All the way to the left side, where we've created a use case called line of business servers, which is a customer that wants to take perhaps on-premise servers, move them to the cloud, manage autoscale, back them up using Azure. But for this example, we'll use IT as a service. Now, you're the MSP, you want to determine what it's going to cost, right? So keep an eye on the bottom left-hand side of the screen where you'll see our if-then calculation live. Let's say you're an MSP, you have 25 users that will use desktop. So you type in 25, maybe 2 of them need VDI desktops, while the rest will be RDS users. Let's assume that you believe the storage space on the server will not be enough and you need a terabyte of storage. Let's also assume that you're going to provide each user with an Office 365. Now you can see we've taken into account Microsoft's various licensing schemes. So for example, Azure hybrid usage, which allows you to make use of existing on-premise Windows Server licenses that you have and apply them to the cloud. Let's assume you're going to do that and you'll click yes. You'll see this will be a tremendous savings for the MSP. And we also have decided we're going to do maybe not 3 years reserved instance, but in this case, 1 year reserved instance. Reserved instance, again, is the ability to pre-purchase compute from Microsoft and prepay for some of that upfront and get the lowest possible price from Microsoft. Let's also assume you're going to do in-region backup, site-to-site VPN. We've also included a place for you to put in your typical bandwidth and storage operation costs. We've put in a place here for you to size what the VDI does. Partner that you procure Azure and Office 365 from. So let's say, for example, for Azure reserved instances, it's not 5%, it's 3%, but your Office 365 discount, let's say it's 8%. And then finally, what data center are you running in? Perhaps you're not in the South Central US, but you're going to serve this customer out of West US, because each data center is different actually for to procure Azure. And once you're finished with that, and you would see a per user per month cost calculated for the MSP. So here you can see in the example that we did, 25 desktops, and with the choices we made, it's going to be $69 a user a month, which comes out to $820 for Azure, $460 for Office 365, RDS of $133, and then the Nerdio cost of $300 a month. And you can see that we've broken it down by the desktops, which virtual machines will actually be deployed, and the instance size and OS disk size. And then finally, what the breakdown is for the cost of procuring Azure, which is the most complicated part. So here you can see the $820 from above, which is calculated by $4,139 for your first month, because if you recall, we made a reservation on this compute and prepay that in the first month. And then in the other 11 months, we pay $519 a month. And we've broken down the Azure cost even further below by desktops, storage, backup, and other pieces of the Azure cost. So again, this is something we're incredibly proud of, the cost estimator. It's making life tremendously easier for MSPs all around the world who are using our product, and certainly is something that we'd encourage all MSPs to take a look at. So with that,
yeah, it definitely takes a lot of the guesswork out, right? By just plugging in those numbers, you know, and pardon?
It definitely does. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of pricing Azure for MSPs, which again is really a barrier that we've seen put in front of them.
Yeah. Now this doesn't include that 69 per user. That doesn't include whatever the MSP wants to charge in terms of margin. Is that correct?
That's correct. This would be the cost to the MSP, and then they would typically take this and, you know, we're seeing MSPs who are building robust cloud practices in Azure using Nerdio for Azure, getting anywhere between 40 and 60 points of margin on that part of the practice. So certainly, I think there's a lot of opportunity for MSPs to you know, to be able to make a lot of money opening up a cloud practice in Azure.
Yeah.
Great. So again, that's our product. We're excited about it. We're seeing great momentum with our partners, and you know, very excited to see what folks here can do to get in contact with us.
So how does one get started with Nerdio then? What's the, you know, besides going to your website? Well,
yeah, great. So let me seem to be missing. Here we are. So let me go back to the slide here. You know, there's a number of different ways, right? So first of all, we've got a great 30-day trial that's available to anyone who wants to log in and make use of the trial. We have webinars that we do each week and each month to allow you to learn more about what's going on with Azure and what's going on with Nerdio. Certainly, you could find us by shooting us an email at sayhello@getnerdio.com. You could call us. You could visit our website at getnerdio.com or nerd.io. So lots of different ways to find us and to get in touch with us. And we are here ready to help you because, again, our whole mission is to empower you, the MSP, to be successful with Azure. And there's nothing we won't do to help you do that.
Okay, yeah, and the other thing too is I'm sure as things change in Azure, you're updating your platform, and the MSP doesn't have to be concerned about that. Is that a good assumption?
Yeah, that's a really great point. Microsoft's making changes with Azure sometimes hourly, particularly when it comes to pricing and other elements of Azure. So we take that worry out of your hands. We're up to date and very close with Microsoft. We're always in tune with what they are doing. And when they make changes, we're updating our platform, we're updating the calculator, we're updating the tooling so that you could rest easy knowing that if you partner with Nerdio, you're always going to be at the forefront of what's going on with Microsoft Azure.
Okay, and you specifically target MSPs, correct? I mean, that's
correct. That's okay, 100% correct. We are a channel company. We're all about interacting with and helping MSPs be successful.
Great, awesome. So, where can any events coming up that you guys are going to be at that people might be able to actually say hi?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're really proud to be part of the IT Nation Evolve peer-to-peer group ecosystem. So if anyone's listening to this webinar and you are an IT Nation Evolve member, we certainly will be at the next meeting in Dallas, which is at the end of April, I believe. We also will be at the Microsoft Inspire event that's coming up in July. In fact, I believe registration was just opened yesterday for that. So we've gone there the past couple of years and got to speak with a ton of great partners. So we'd love to see you there as well. But again, we don't want to wait for those two events. You can reach us any minute of any day up on our website and by just shooting us a note, and we'd love to give you a call and talk about what we have.
Awesome. Joseph, I have learned so much about Nerdio. I was kind of curious, you had seen what you'd had on your website about the platform, and actually seeing it in action, I think is really great. I think it's a great resource for MSPs to take advantage of.
Great. Well, really, it's been a pleasure being a part of the webinar, and we hope you'll have us back so we could keep talking about the evolutions that we continue to make in our product. And again, would love to talk to any MSP from the webinar today or otherwise about what we have and how we can help you build successful cloud practices in Azure. So thank you.
All right, great. Joseph, thanks again, and have a great day. Yeah, thank you.